Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to some more MrBallen, and it is another top 3 places you can't go and people went anyways. These videos always just baffle me, to be honest, because people will just go to these places that they shouldn't do, and yeah, the bad things that are expected happen to them. But yeah, we're going to check this out and see what the stories are in this video. But yeah, if you want to see some more of this stuff, let me know in the comments. But yeah, links are also in the description to my Patreon, where you can see some more of my reactions that I can't post to YouTube for whatever reason, copyright or whatever. But let's check this out and see some of these stories.
A more accurate title for this video could be The Worst Ways to Die. But before we get into today's stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right channel, because that's all we do, and we upload 3, 4, even 5 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, please go over to the like button's house and ask to play hide and go seek. When they are hiding, switch their regular coffee,
Hide and go seek? Isn't it just called hide and seek?
for decaf coffee, and then don't seek them, just leave. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Alright, let's get into today's stories.
The Limpopo.
Nicknamed the Great Gray Green Greasy, the Limpopo River is one of Africa's largest rivers. It serves as a border between Zimbabwe and South Africa, and it also happens to be one of the most dangerous places on Earth. A town in South Africa called Phalaborwa sits on Limpopo's shores, and all of its residents know they're never supposed to step foot inside of the dangerous waterway. But not all of their residents take that guidance seriously. On January 1st, 2010, Phalaborwa resident Mariska Buitendog, along with her boyfriend and 6 of their other friends, had been out all night partying, celebrating the new year. They had had a considerable amount of alcohol over the course of the night, so as the sun was coming up, in their inebriated state, they decided they wanted to take an early morning dip in the Limpopo River. So they head over to the river, and while
Doesn't sound like a good idea already. I mean,
initially they all seemed really eager to get in the waterway, it was only Mariska that was brave enough to do it. So the rest stayed on shore, and Mariska jumped in the river and jumped right out again.
okay.
She survived, and everyone was very impressed with her. And so she's confident, and so
Wait, they're impressive for surviving, so they know it's really high risk.
she does it again, this time going a little bit farther out into the river before coming back on shore. Now she's really confident.
Oh god, she's building her confidence up too much to the point where she's gonna think she's like invincible. God damn it.
She's done it twice, and so she said, hey, who wants to come with me for a third time in? And the group said, no, we're still good, and you really shouldn't push your luck. This is not safe. And she said, I don't care, I'm going in for a third time. So Mariska gets in the water, and by herself, she swims out on her back about 15 meters away from shore. She turns and waves at the group and smiles before she is violently pulled under the water. There wasn't even time for her to scream. Her boyfriend immediately jumped into the water to try to pull her out, but he knew where she was, and there was no way he was getting her back. The other nickname for the Limpopo River is Crocodile River.
Oh, it was a crocodile.
And Mariska, unfortunately, had fell victim to one of its apex predators.
Oh my god, I didn't even know it was for I just thought it was dangerous waters. Oh my god, this makes it even more stupid, man. What the hell?
But it's not just drunk partygoers that fall victim to these crocodiles. Unfortunately for the residents of Zimbabwe, because of the extreme hardships they have to face, many of them have been forced to flee the country and cross over.
Mate, that's so depressing. Fuck. That's so sad. That the crazy thing is that this wasn't probably the same scenario, but I was just at the park with my friend the other day playing football, and then we just met this kid, or like 17-year-old I think, started playing football with him, and he's from Zimbabwe as well. He came to the UK really recently. I don't know what's happening there, but I guess it's just, maybe, is it civil war, or is it just people being mistreated, which seems to be a common occurrence to people in countries in Africa, which is sad. But
the Limpopo River to try to gain entry into South Africa, and many of them will die trying. On April 11th, 2014, Zimbabwean and South African police discovered this crocodile-infested cave right near where Zimbabwean residents will try to cross over the Limpopo River.
What?
And inside of this cave were the remains of 15 people that presumably tried to cross over and were caught by crocodiles. The discovery of this cave and the 15 people who lost their lives inside of it, while tragic and certainly gruesome, it only represents a fraction of the total number of people who have died trying to cross this river.
Jesus. Bloody hell. That is horrible. What the fuck, man? and it's just people trying to escape the hardships of their life in the country they're in. Flipping out, man.
Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming is one of the most remarkable and beautiful places on Earth. Not only is it renowned for its biodiversity, which includes some incredibly resilient microbial organisms, it's also home to one of the world's so-called supervolcanoes. This supervolcano sits atop one of the world's largest magma bodies fueled by an upwelling plume of superheated material. This dynamic and violent subterranean plumbing means the water bodies at the surface, the famous Yellowstone hot springs, are highly acidic and incredibly hot. If you were to ignore the countless warnings around these hot springs telling you to stay away, do not go in the hot springs, if you were to ignore those and go in one, or more accurately, fall in one, this is what would happen to you. First, your body would register that your skin was bathing in waters exceeding 200 degrees Fahrenheit. This would hurt like nothing you can possibly imagine. But it would only hurt as long as your nervous system was able to register pain, which would only be for about 1 minute or less. At this temperature, your skin would begin to quickly break down and disintegrate, and your...
Oh my god, don't say someone fell in this. I'm assuming many people have fell in that, to be honest. Yeah, that's just a guarantee, to be honest.
blood vessels in your underlying dermis would rupture, causing rapid blood loss. Some underlying skin layers would not break down, but they would lose all of their water and become tough and blackened. And your underlying subcutaneous fat would bubble off as well. All in all, this is known as a full thickness burn, and it would occur in about 1 minute in these waters. Your nervous system would enter a state of shock and become irreversibly damaged, which would lead to most, if not all, of your organs to fail if the heat stress has not already done that to you. You would be dead within 2 to 3 minutes, and then at that point, the acidity of the water would take over. Within a few hours, your body, including your skeleton, would be completely dissolved into absolute nothingness.
What the fuck? So this water is like... So what's doing that to your body? Like, what, like, making you disintegrate? Disintegrate? What did you say, disintegrate? Like, basically just taking your body away.
Including your skeleton, would be completely dissolved.
Dissolved, that's what I mean. Is that because of the heat or because of the acidity? Because I know acid does that to, like, flesh or whatever. The heat wouldn't do that. Like, that would just burn you, right? So it must be really stupidly high in acid as well as the heat. Oh, mate, imagine falling into that. That is grim.
Into absolute nothingness. And for anyone who falls in but manages to climb out again before being dissolved, they are not out of the woods. Many of those people, unfortunately, will die hours, days, months later due to complications from the burns.
So it's like, kind of like how radiation works in a sense. Like, you may have got out of the woods initially, but your body's vulnerable for months, maybe even years after, and then you're going to just have a longer death, pretty much.
On June 7th, 2016, Colin Scott and his sister Sable went to Yellowstone to see the famous hot springs. The siblings were exploring the Norris Geyser Basin, which is the park's oldest and hottest thermal area, when they decided to leave the safety of the boardwalk and walk past all the signs telling them, do not leave the boardwalk, this is dangerous, turn around. They decided to walk past all of those and venture out off the course. They walked approximately 200 meters away from the path to the edge of a hot spring that was not really part of the main tour, and they were just standing there when Colin apparently tripped and fell into the hot spring. And his sister was just not able to do anything. She knew she couldn't go in after him, and he very quickly sunk below the surface and didn't come up again. She ran back to try to get help, but by the time they got back to the edge of the hot spring, he was gone. And in fact, the only thing they would find of Colin Scott was his flip-flops.
Oh man, that is nasty.
Since 1890, Colin Scott, along with 21 other people, have died by falling into these hot springs.
I mean, if you're not going to follow the rules, as sad as it is, if you're not going to follow the rules, those things are going to happen. Okay, this one is drown or gloried. Oh, I hate, if this is another flipping sea diving one or whatever, I'm going to be so annoyed because I hate them ones. They like make me want to curl up into a ball and just cry, because the idea of drowning whilst trying to find an escape to get out, like the cave diving and stuff, oh, I hate it, man. I hate it. Probably is that though.
There is a remote cliff face in northern England that rarely gets tourists. If you were standing in front of it, you would see this little stream that went into a break in the limestone. It's this little tiny hole, and that stream is called the Mossdale Beck. If you crouched down and walked through that hole, you would be entering the Mossdale Caverns, which since 1967 have been permanently sealed off to cavers. Once inside the Mossdale Caverns entranceway, you could look down and see that little stream, the Mossdale Beck, would be going between your legs, and then right in front of you, it would split in two distinct directions down respective tunnels. To the right, the water flows down 7 miles of accessible passageway. However, most of it is incredibly tight and it's prone to flooding. As a result, fewer people have seen the far reaches of the right side of Mossdale Cavern
7 miles long and it's prone to flooding. Why would anyone go there?
than have stepped on the moon. To the left, the water goes through these impenetrable
Wait, less people have been there than on the moon. That is a pretty small view then.
rocks that no one has gotten past. In fact, no one knows what's beyond these rocks. However, scientists have determined the water that goes left at the entranceway will reemerge 18 days later, 5 miles away, 900 feet lower, in a pool called the Black Keld. The massive tunnel system that we know exists but has yet to be explored that connects the entranceway to Black Keld is referred to as the missing link. You would think cavers from all over the world would be clamoring to get inside that accessible side, the right side of Mossdale Caverns, and try to find a secret access point back to the missing link, to be the first person to discover that, to stake your claim and say, you know, that was me. But in fact, since the Mossdale Caverns was discovered in 1941 until 1967, almost no one went in Mossdale Caverns. Endless, tight, water-filled crawls with names like Drown or Glory made Mossdale Caverns feel like too big of a risk to be worth it. But in 1967, 10 extremely fit, extremely experienced cavers said, you know what? We are going in Mossdale Cavern and we are going to find that entrance to the missing link. So on June 24th, 1967, these 10 cavers entered Mossdale Caverns. They went right into the accessible 7 miles of passageway and they began their descent. And it wasn't that long until 2 of the 10 cavers, the 2 least experienced of the group, said, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I've got a bad feeling about this.
Fair enough.
But we don't know the way out. And so they needed chaperones to leave. And so 2 other cavers from the group had to go with them. So 4 cavers.
At least they actually went back with them. I thought maybe they'd be like, oh, you're stuck here now. Well, at least they actually helped them back.
Leave Mossdale Caverns. The other 6 are going to continue on. So when the 4 got back to the surface, it was about 5 p.m. They had been in the cavern for several hours at this point. And when they went in initially, the weather was great. It was beautiful. It was clear. Now they're coming out again, and it had started to rain. Not significantly. It was more like a drizzle. But they were a little bit concerned because they knew the other 6 were planning to be in the cavern until after midnight. So they were just hopeful that the rain did not get any worse. But just a couple of hours later, the skies opened up and it rained like it hadn't rained in years.
You'd think you'd probably try and look for the forecasts. Maybe in these times you didn't have the best ability to track that stuff, I guess, because now you can just look on your phone, to be fair. But that would surely be your number one rule. Especially in the UK, it's going to rain, so you want to be sure.
Just torrential downpour, and the 4 were really concerned about the other 6. So they went back to the entrance hoping that maybe, the other 6 would have heard the rain, although it's very unlikely considering how deep they were going to be. But they were hoping that maybe they'd be coming out again and they would see them and get them back to safety. But when they arrived there, not only were the 6 not out of the cave, but the actual entrance to the cave was completely submerged in water. Earlier that day, when the 4 cavers turned around and left, the other 6 cavers, they continued on, and they had made it about 2 miles deep into these caves. They had passed the fabled Drown or Glory swim, they had survived the knee wrecker passage, and they had bit their tongue as they squeezed through the famously painful Umaguli tunnel, now located hours away from the only way out. So they are way into this cave. They were nearing the end of this distant section of the cave that they believed on the other end they would find this hidden entrance into the missing link. All they had to do was pass through the Far Marathon section, which is a 900-foot tunnel that is only 10 inches high, 2 feet wide, and you have to wriggle through on your stomach.
Why? It makes me cringe so much. Cave diving cave explorers or whatever, I respect you, but man, I'm so happy I've not got this interest. I'm so happy.
With your face pressed against a stream that runs through it. And it takes a very long time to get through it. It's incredibly claustrophobia inducing. It's considered one of the most stressful things you can do in caving. But considering how experienced these cavers were and the fact that they had come down there specifically to get to this far point in the cave, you got to figure that their spirits were high. They were probably joking with each other as they're doing this awful thing. And then they made it about 3/4 of the way through this tunnel when someone must have noticed the distant rumbling sound and said, "Hey, what is that?" And as they sat there listening, trying to discern what the sound was, it must have dawned on them that their worst nightmare was about to come true. That was the sound of surging water. This tunnel is about to flood. They began crawling faster and faster down the marathon tunnel. Not only was it very difficult to move quickly inside of this very tight tunnel, but they also knew there was nowhere to go. They're 2 miles underground. They must have felt like the world of sunshine and fresh air was suddenly an eternity away. The oldest of the group was 26. The rest of them were all in their teens. United now.
In the teens, how can they be experienced cave divers then? I mean, you can't really be that experienced if you're that young. Unless they've been cave diving since they were, what, like 10, 11? Flipping hell,
By
man.
fear, the water came rushing in as they're all pinned inside of the far marathon tunnel, and their face is already up against the river, and now this river is surging with water, and so they're all desperately trying to crawl through this flooding tunnel. And the leader of the group, the guy literally in the front, John Ogden, who was 26, he managed to get all the way through the far marathon tunnel to the space where they anticipated finding that secret entrance into the missing link. That wasn't there, but he found above him there was a small fissure in the rocks. There was an air pocket, and he managed to get his head up into the space right as the water in the far marathon cave completely submerged. So any of the cavers in there, they drowned inside of the far marathon. The bubble that he was in was a little bit bigger, and so some of the cavers managed to get in there, and they tried to clamber into this air pocket as well, but ultimately there was only enough room for one person, and John was the only one up there. And so as the water levels filled the room he was in up to his neck, everyone below John drowned. Now, we don't know if John literally kept other people from getting into this air pocket with him. All we know is it could only hold one person, and ultimately John was the one who was left inside of this crevice. But this air pocket was really just delaying the inevitable because there wasn't very much air inside of it, and John's 2 miles below the surface. There is no way anyone is going to get to him in time. And so he ended up dying a couple days later, and when they found him, he was still in the air.
A couple days later. Flipping hell. Oh my god, I can't even imagine.
Pocket trying to get one last breath. What I've not covered in this story that I would encourage you all to check out is there was this incredible effort to try to save these cavers before anyone knew they were deceased. There was this hope that maybe they found an air pocket and they were still alive. And so they basically created this artificial dam that was very precarious. The water could at any moment spill over, and it provided just enough drainage inside of this cavern for some of the best cavers in the world to go into the cavern to look for them. And so they went into this cavern knowing at any minute that makeshift dam on the surface could break and they will 100% drown in here. No one's coming to get them. They had to crawl through the far marathon tunnel all the way down at the bottom to get to the lost cavers. And ultimately, when they discovered they were all deceased, it would have been impossible to remove their bodies. And so the decision was made to leave the 6 cavers where they died and seal off the cave permanently. So in 1967, they sealed it off.
Oh, 67. I think I said 1980s.
And they now treat Mossdale Caverns like a gravesite, and no one goes in it. So that's going to do it, guys. If you found the secret in today's episode, let us know in the comments what it is. And
what a horrible way to go, man. That is the worst possible way to go, I swear to God. Oh man, that makes me cringe so much. Top 3 things I've learned from the top 3 places you can't go series. Stay away from caves, stay away from water, stay away from underwater caves. That's the same for me, man. Not often do we have smart people in this series. I applaud the 2 novice cavers, not only for going back, but for insisting on having 2 experts go over them. Yeah, I mean, they saved their lives, and the 2 experts as well. As horrendous as drowning would be, living for a couple days in a tiny air pocket knowing you'll eventually run out of air and that your friends are dead behind and around you would be worse. I think, yeah, it's just, that is nasty, man. Fuck. That is nasty. But yeah, hopefully you found this interesting, and if you're a cave diver, let me know your experiences or whatever. You're a diver, you're a cave diver, you explore caves. I'm assuming it's not always like this. I mean, it obviously isn't because so many people do it. But have you ever had a situation where you've been scared for your life or stuff like that? I'm assuming there are cases that are like that, but I don't know. But yeah, let me know if you are on the off chance a cave diver or something, because what a wild hobby. I'm not gonna lie, what a wild ass hobby. But yeah, that's that. Until next time, like, subscribe. Peace.